Hi, my name's Nick Taylor. I work for the Penwith Landscape Partnership. In these difficult times that we find ourselves in, we've been asked to stay home and only go out to the shops when it's absolutely essential. I thought it might be nice to have a little look at what edible plants you might find living in your garden. It's always nice to be able to nip out and pick a few leaves and add those to your salads, especially if you're running low. There's quite a few plants growing in your garden that are edible. There are also a few wild plants that aren't good to eat. So before we start, it's worth saying that you should be absolutely sure that you know what you're picking. And if you don't know, don't eat it. There's lots of good resources you can use. First of all, you need to be able to identify your wild plants. So you need to have something like a wildflower key. This is an excellent one. This is the one I use. And there's also a really good range of resources about edible wild plants. So I use a book called Food for Free by Richard Maybe. There's also lots and lots of information online as well that you can check. So I've had a little wander around the garden. I've looked for some nice edible things to show you. It's one of the advantages, actually. I'm very lucky to have a overgrown, pretty wild garden. Good for wildlife and good for what some people would call weeds, but I call them wildflowers. So let's have a little look. Now, this one is very common in Cornwall at the moment. It's a little bit invasive, actually. It's a non-native plant which has spread quite dramatically in recent years, but it's very tasty. It's a great plant for adding to your salads. This one is called three-cornered leek, and the name comes from the stems of the flowers, which are triangular. You can feel those little triangles. It's quite a strong garlicky flavour, so you only need a small amount of it. I chop up a little bit into salads. Apparently another nice thing to do is add it to scrambled egg. That tastes really good. The flowers are slightly less strong in taste. They've got a kind of nutty flavour. Very delicious, actually. Just sprinkle a few of these into salads and they look very pretty. So this is three-cornered leek. Allium triquetrum is the Latin name. Some people call this wild garlic, and this is where Latin names are actually quite useful, because we have another plant in the UK that's sometimes called wild garlic, which is also known as ramsons, but this is perhaps best called three-cornered leek. I think that describes it really well. Okay, so the second plant I'd like to show you is this one. This one is actually a tree, a small tree, or hedgerow plant called Hawthorn. This has been eaten for generations around this time of year. Kids walking to school would pick some leaves and would eat them. They used to call them bread and cheese, I believe. And at the moment, when the leaves are just coming out, they're lovely and tender, really soft, beautiful in salads. They only last for perhaps 2 or 3 weeks like this, because then they start to harden off and they become much more chewy. But at this time of the year, hawthorn leaves are delicious. Now, what else have we got? This one is one of my favourites. This one, even if you've got the tiniest of gardens, even if you've just got flower pots, you may well find this one growing. Now, this is called hairy bitter cress. If you have a look at the leaves, you can see it's... Oh yeah, does that camera focus on that? It looks like a little piece of watercress. And it tastes like watercress too. It's got that typical watercress family flower, or the cabbage family flower as well. So, hairy bittercress, really tasty, and you'll find this growing all around your garden. This one was just in some cracks on the steps coming up to my house. So, really lovely, tasty wildflower, this one. Now, This is one of my favourites. This is Sorrel, which may be familiar to you. This has the pointy shaped leaves, pointy ends to the leaves here, and a really delicious lemon flavour. That is really gorgeous. Apparently Roman legionnaires would use this while they were marching to stop themselves from getting thirsty. It really does. That's really kind of yeah, really very lemony, and it makes your mouth water. Right, what else have we got? Another good one. Right, this one I'm going to show you in another little film, because there's something fun you can do with this one. But this is a beautiful edible plant that is found growing very commonly in the hedges in Cornwall. Another hint of caution actually, I think it's always worth being mindful if you do go out and collect wild flowers or leaves to eat. Just think about where they're growing. Be cautious, I guess, if they're along the side of roads, and if they're low down, of course, you might be picking from somewhere where dogs have weed, so I would be mindful of that. But yeah, if you're away from a roadside, if they're high up in a hedge, I think you're going to be fine. And another thing I would always recommend is giving these a good thorough rinse wash before you eat them. So this one is called Naval wort, or Penwith is another name for it. It's a succulent plant, quite juicy. Can you see how thick that is? Really, really tasty, this one. So nice in salads. Now, what have we got? Now, the last wild one I want to show you is this one. Leaves a little bit small. I'm sure you recognise this one. This is Dandelion. The name apparently comes from the shape of the teeth, which means it's come from the French Dandelion, which means tooth of the lion. See those little serrations, or little kind of tooth shapes on the leaves. So this can go into your salad as well. This has got quite a bitter taste. When I was growing up, my mum used to use the sap to put it on my nails to stop me biting my nails. So it does have quite a bitter taste. And another word of caution, I think, in France this is known as pissenlit, and apparently it has a diuretic effect. Pissenlit means wet the bed, so don't know whether that's true or not, but I think a few of these in your salad would be fine. So that's dandelion. Now, a couple of other plants. These don't quite count as wild plants, but what I noticed as I was walking around my garden, I haven't cleared out my veg patch from last year, and normally I would rip everything up, chuck it on the compost and start again. But what I noticed today was that actually some of the plants that I put in last year have still got quite a bit of good stuff that you can eat. So this is some perpetual spinach. Have a look in your veg patch, see what you've got. So yeah, a bit of perpetual spinach, that's going to be great to eat. And then also I found some curly kale, so nice and fresh. So in these times where your diet might perhaps be lacking in fresh stuff, get out into your garden and see what there is to eat growing wild. It's all free and fantastic and healthy. Thanks.